Me and two interns got dumped into ski rentals because the line was a shit show and my manager promised overtime if I kept the boot wall moving. I planned to close my register fast, return the lost and found keys, and cut through the service road to my car before the storm hit. The shop was steam and wet carpet and people snapping at each other because their feet hurt and their kids were crying and the rental line had eaten their whole afternoon. I kept the scanner going, kept boots coming off the wall, kept telling the interns to stop apologizing and just move. My manager hovered like a vulture, pretending he was supporting while he kept changing the rules. First it was overtime for everyone. Then it was only if we clear the last wave. Then it was we'll see. I told him not to fuck with me about it. He smirked and said I was getting too emotional. That set me off, but I swallowed it because closing time was close and I wanted out. 10 minutes before we locked up, a guy walked in with his goggles still on, lenses fogged white like he'd just come out of a freezer. No jacket dusted with snow, no group behind him, no vibe of someone rushing to return gear. He moved straight to my counter like he'd been here before. He slapped down a demo ski ticket that wasn't ours. Wrong watermark, wrong color, cheap paper. I could see the ink bleeding from shitty printer. He leaned close enough that I smelled cold air and something sour on his breath, and asked for the back bowl map. I told him no. Rentals doesn't hand out maps like that. Go to guest services. We're closing. He smiled like I'd just done him a favor. I pushed the ticket back, and he didn't pick it up. He just let it sit there like an anchor and drifted toward the boot wall. The intern stopped talking. My manager started doing his customer voice, all fake calm, telling him we were closed and he had to leave. The guy didn't even look at him. He ran his fingers over buckles, squeezed liners, clicked a few straps like he was testing how much he could touch before someone stopped him. He kept checking my name tag, not the gear. I told him to stop handling equipment. He kept doing it slow, deliberate. My manager snapped, stepped closer, tried to posture. The guy finally looked at him for half a second, then looked right back at me like my manager was furniture. Then he pointed up at a pair of powder skis on the top rack and said his buddy left them outside and he needed the serial number to report them. He shoved his phone toward me. Camera already open. Not a text thread, not a call screen. Camera. Like he wanted a picture of my hands, my face, my badge, whatever I'd give him. I didn't touch his phone. I said fuck off. The interns flinched. My manager did that offended gasp like I'd embarrassed him in public. The guy laughed, a quiet little laugh, then walked to the door, held it open, and nodded like I should follow. Snow punched into the shop, wet and sharp, and he just stood there letting it blow in. My manager barked at him to stop messing around. The guy kept nodding, small, steady, like he was calling a dog. I should have stayed inside. I know that. But I pictured him circling the demo fleet, slicing straps, fucking with bindings, stealing a pair, then my manager pinning it on me, because he always pins shit on the person who actually works. So I grabbed my headlamp from my locker, clipped it on, and went out. The lot was mostly empty. Plows had built dirty berms along the edges, and the storm had started doing that sideways sheet thing that stings your cheeks. The door shut behind me, and the sound dropped off like someone cut power. His buddy was a lie. No skis outside. No gear. Just his boot prints leading away from the entrance toward the dark edge of base area. He called my first name without looking back. That hit me hard. I hadn't said my name. He'd read it off my tag, sure, but hearing it out here in the storm like he owned it made my stomach tighten. I snapped at him to stop. He kept walking. I followed because I was tired and angry and convinced I was handling it like an adult. His prints ran along the service road for a bit, then cut through a gap in the fence, one of those staff shortcuts to the lift shack. Past that, the light died. The mountain went flat and white and loud with wind. I tried my radio. Static. Tried again, holding it up, turning my body like I could find a signal by luck. Static. I told myself the storm was messing with it. I told myself it was fine. His tracks got weird. Not wandering, not confused. Clean, like he knew exactly where he was going. Downhill, then up, then a hard angle toward a stand of tight spruce where snow piles deep and hides holes. It felt like he was leading me into a pocket, a dead zone. I yelled once, "Sharp, mean." He didn't answer. Nothing answered. Even the lodge music vanished. I saw him again under the trees. He had his goggles up now. His eyes were calm in a way that didn't fit the situation. Not scared, not annoyed, not rushed. Calm like he'd done this 100 times and knew the ending. He lifted his phone and showed me the screen. A map pin. His dot. He'd been tracking me. He tapped the screen, then tapped the trees like, "Keep coming." I stopped. My boots sank. I backed up slow, trying to act like I was choosing to leave, not panicking. My heel broke through crust, and I dropped waist deep into powder so fast it stole my breath. Snow shoved into my jacket. My poles pinned weird. My legs locked in place like someone grabbed them. I thrashed once and sank more. The cold hit my ribs, and I had this ugly flash of how easy it would be to tire out and just stop. He didn't rush me. He didn't lunge. He just watched me fight the snow like he wanted me to waste everything I had. I shoved a pole down, hit something solid, and levered myself up inch by inch, cursing into my own scarf. My gloves soaked through. My fingers went numb so fast it felt like a switch flipped. I got a knee up, then rolled my hips onto the surface, then jammed my boots under me and stood. My legs shook. I turned to run, and that's when the floodlights snapped on. Not gradual. Not, "Oh look, someone's coming." Just pure white light blasting through the storm, turning every snowflake into a bright streak. A snowcat rolled up the service road, engine chewing the quiet, and behind it 2 ski patrollers and a county deputy stepped out. One patroller had the resort radio to his mouth, repeating my name like he'd been calling it for minutes. Hearing my name from someone who wasn't that guy made my throat unlock a little. I tried to speak and my voice cracked. I pointed. The guy under the trees didn't bolt. He raised both hands like a saint, slow, calm, like he'd been waiting to be rescued. The deputy moved fast anyway, closed distance, cuffed him. The patroller came straight to me and put himself between me and the guy without even thinking about it. He asked if I'd fallen into a well. I nodded because my jaw was shaking. The deputy asked if I recognized the guy. I didn't. I stared at the phone in his hand because it was still lit, still open, like it was glued to him. The deputy took it and flipped through the gallery right there in the snow. Screenshots of employee badges, photos of name tags, shots of back gates, staff-only signs, lift mazes, the fence gap I just used like someone had been documenting shortcuts and weak points. Dozens, maybe hundreds. My stomach rolled when I saw pictures clearly taken inside rentals, angles behind the counter, like he'd been standing where I stand while we were slammed and nobody noticed. The walk back felt endless, even though it wasn't. The snowcat crawled behind us like a guard dog. The patroller kept his shoulder in front of me the whole time. The guy didn't fight, didn't argue, didn't beg. He just turned his head once and looked at me over his shoulder with that same calm, like he was filing me away. When we hit the base lights again, everything looked normal in a way that felt insane. Warm windows, music, people laughing with beers. My manager ran out and started yelling about where I'd gone and how I'd better not be making drama at close. The patroller shut him down with one look, and my manager's face changed fast, like he realized there were uniforms now and his bullshit didn't matter. Later, I learned they'd been looking for him all week because guests kept reporting someone helping them find powder, then separating them from friends. I didn't get my overtime. I got a new rule. If a stranger tries to move you off the lit part of the mountain, you don't argue. You don't chase. You hit a panic button and let professionals bring the fucking lights. I had a little action cam contract. Nothing glamorous, just shooting a local brand's storm day clips for social. I planned one quick lap through the glades, grab shots of snow billowing, then meet the rep at the Mid-Mountain Cafe for payment and a greasy sandwich. The rep kept pushing for untouched shots, like that word made the mountain safe. I told him I'd stay close to the run. He stared at my camera like it was a toy and reminded me what he was paying. I didn't need his attitude, but I needed the check, so I nodded and pointed my skis toward the trees. I ducked the rope where everyone ducks it, 2 steps past the thin coverage sign, into trees that looked friendly because they were close to the run. Snow was dumping in fat, quiet sheets, the kind that makes you feel safe because it's soft. The first turns were perfect, and that's what sucks. I kept the camera low, chasing my tips punching powder, trying to get that clean spray people love. The storm erased tracks as fast as I made them. I could still see the lift through gaps, chairs sliding by, and it made me feel like I wasn't really out there, like I could bail back to the groomer whenever. I cut left around a fur, and the ground vanished. No drama, no scream, just gravity and a trap. My right ski sank, and the rest of me followed, flipping me forward. The snow swallowed my helmet, my shoulders, my mouth. I ended up upside down, chest pinned, face packed in cold that fought every breath. Tree well, the word hit after the panic. My brain tried to file it as a normal wipeout. Stand up, laugh, keep filming. Except I couldn't stand up. Snow pressed into my goggles so hard it bent the frame against my face. I inhaled without thinking and pulled grit snow into my throat like sand. I thrashed because that's what bodies do. It just made the hole tighter. Powder turned to a wall. Snow slid into my hood, my goggles, my mouth, down my collar, and it didn't slide away again. One arm was wedged tight against the trunk. The other was bent in front of my face, and I could barely move it. My right binding didn't release. The ski acted like a lever, pulling me deeper every time I fought it. Pressure squeezed my ribs like somebody had sat on my chest and leaned forward. I tried to punch upward, and my glove hit nothing. Not surface, not air, nothing. It was like the world above me had been replaced with concrete. I forced myself to stop thrashing. That felt impossible. Your body wants to fight. The mountain doesn't care. I tried to breathe through my nose. Snow sucked in anyway. Each inhale pulled crystals into my throat and made me cough, and coughing stole oxygen I didn't have. Every cough knocked more snow down onto my face, so it turned into this sick loop. Breathe, choke, cough, get buried a little more. My spit turned to slush. I couldn't clear it. I tried to swallow, and my throat locked like it was protecting itself. I could hear the lift faintly, like a distant engine. 30 meters, maybe less. It might as well have been the moon. My phone was in my chest pocket, zipped, a stupid little rectangle that might as well have been on another planet. I tried to twist my shoulder to reach it, and the snow clamped down harder. I tried to scream anyway, because desperation makes you dumb, and just came out as a muffled gurgle into ice. I kept telling myself the same thing on repeat. Don't move, save air, make space. But my body didn't listen. It did that desperate swallow and gasp thing, like it was trying to drink air through snow. My tongue went numb. My lips stuck to the inside of my buff. My lungs felt like they were dragging against sandpaper. I thought about the rep at the cafe, checking his watch, texting me something pissy. Then my brain snapped back, and I hated myself for thinking about a fucking sandwich while I was suffocating. That's the part that keeps me up. Not the fall, the decision. I had friends on the mountain. I could have waited, followed someone in, done the buddy thing like every sign and every patroller begs you to. I want to be quick. I wanted to be the guy who always delivers. So I went by myself, and I got exactly what I earned. My legs started to cramp. My thighs seized, and the pain made me jerk. And the jerk made the ski lever down again. My knee twisted, and I saw sparks behind my goggles. The cold turned mean fast. My heartbeat felt far away, like it didn't want to keep doing this. This awful calm tried to creep in, like my brain was already packing up. I remember realizing I was getting tired of fighting, and that thought scared the shit out of me. I managed to free the cam hand and shove it upward. The camera popped out of the snow like a little black periscope. Red light still blinking, recording my stupid death. Seeing that red light above the surface while I was buried under it made me furious. I tried to dig with my fingers. My gloves scraped at snow that wouldn't move. The more I worked, the more it settled. My shoulder screamed when I pushed too hard. My hand started shaking Not even from cold, just from oxygen-starved panic. I don't know what made the difference, luck, timing, or the fact I clipped a bright orange microfiber cloth to my pole for lens wipes. My pole was somewhere above me, stuck. I flexed my wrist and felt fabric. I pinched it and yanked. The cloth tore free and fluttered loose in the hole. I pushed it up with my fingertips until it touched open air, then held my fingers there like I was pinning a lifeline to the world. Minutes later, maybe 5, maybe 100, I heard a muffled H-E-Y. I tried to yell. It came out as a wet grunt. I tried again and gagged on snow. The salience of skis got closer, careful and searching, stopping, starting. Someone stomped near the hole and snow collapsed onto my face. And for a second, I couldn't inhale at all. A shadow leaned over. A ski patroller, goggles crusted, eyes wide as hell. He didn't waste words. He dropped to his knees and started digging like his life depended on it. The first chunks hit my helmet and scared the shit out of me because it felt like burial, not rescue. Then light leaked in. The snow came out in hard blocks because it had set around me. He carved a pocket for my head first. Air hit my mouth and I gagged like I'd been drowning. I sucked in so hard my lungs hurt, then I coughed until my throat burned. He found my stuck ski and cut it loose, quick and practiced. When it released, my whole body shifted and pain shot through my knee and ribs so hard I made this sound that wasn't words. He grabbed my jacket straps and hauled my torso out. My body came out in jerks like I didn't belong in the world anymore. Wind hit my face and it felt like fire. He rolled me onto my side, kept one hand on my shoulder like he didn't trust me not to fall back in. He made me wiggle fingers, wiggle toes. His radio crackled, and he snapped a quick update into it without taking his eyes off me. I kept coughing up cold spit and tasting metal. 2 riders slid up behind him and froze when they saw the hole. One of them started to say something, and the patroller barked a short back up. Not mean, just urgent. Nobody wanted to be the next idiot in the snow. He got me moving because standing still in that storm meant freezing. Every glide out of the trees felt unreal, like I'd been teleported from somewhere private and lethal back into a busy ski day. People passed us laughing, music coming off someone's speaker, and I wanted to grab them and shake them and say the trees don't care how close the lift is. On the run back, he didn't scold me. He didn't need to. He just said one sentence, flat and angry. People die right there with the lift in sight. Back at the cafe, the rep looked relieved for half a second, then asked if I got anything usable. I just stared at him, shaking, and the patroller's stare shut him up. His question made my near death feel like a deliverable, and it lit this cold anger in me that I didn't know what to do with. They sat me in patrol with a blanket and a space heater that smelled like dust. Somebody checked my ribs, asked about my head, kept shining a light in my eyes. I answered like I was half drunk. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. They kept asking if I'd been alone, and I kept nodding because lying felt pointless. When the rep finally showed up, he tried to joke like we were still on schedule. I didn't have words for how much that pissed me off. I just handed him the camera without looking at him. He reached for it, hesitated, then backed off when the patroller stepped between us. That was the closest thing to an argument, and it still felt like too much effort. Later, I pulled the SD card out of the camera. The file was there like any normal clip, a timestamp and a size. My cursor hovered over it, and my stomach dropped like I was back in the hole. I closed the laptop. I still have the footage. I've never watched past the moment the camera breaks the surface. I don't need proof. I remember the sound my lungs made when they finally got air again, like an animal that hates you for almost letting it go. At the time, I was the junior in a guiding outfit, the one who carried extra skins and shut up. We had a small group, stable forecast on paper, and a plan. One conservative lap on a mellow shoulder, then back before the light went flat. The client who talked the most was the problem. He kept skating ahead, cutting the switchbacks, side-hilling into little steeper rolls like he was sniffing for an audience. My lead guide snapped at him twice before we'd even hit tree lane. The guy smirked and did that half-nod people do when they're already ignoring you. I was behind, dragging the heavy pack, trying to keep eyes on everyone spacing. Wind had been working all night. You could see it on the ridges, smooth pillows, little cornices that clean, someone ironed it, look that should make you slow down, not speed up. But clients see that and think it's an invitation. At Treeline, the lead guide stopped dead and made it awkward on purpose. Beacon, check again. Spacing rules again. He told the loud guy straight. Ski the line we set or we turn around. The loud guy sighed loud enough for everyone to hear, muttered about paying for an adventure, and tried to turn it into a group vote with his eyes. Nobody backed him. His friend wouldn't meet his stare. That pissed him off more. He started swinging his poles, stomping snow, acting like we were ruining his day. My lead guide stepped close and said, low and final, that he wasn't here to get anyone killed for a client's ego. The loud guy shut up for maybe 30 seconds. We dropped into the trees to adjust layers. The loud guy started chirping about how stable meant we were good, how he'd skied worse, how guides always play it safe because of liability. My lead guide told him, blunt, that stable doesn't mean can't slide, and that we were sticking to the track. The guy laughed like it was a joke on him, then pushed ahead again. I felt my face go hot under my balaclava. I wanted to tell him to shut the fuck up, but juniors don't get to pick fights with clients. Juniors carry the extra shit and hope the adults win. We approached a convex roll. Nothing huge, just enough to make me uneasy. Wind had been loading that aspect. I felt it in the surface, stiff, drum-like, the snow talking back under my skis. The lead guide pointed out the line. Stay right, ride the rib, tag a small island of trees, then drop one at a time. Simple. Conservative. The loud guy kept drifting left, eyeing the cleaner, steeper pitch we'd already nixed. He wanted something to brag about on the drive home. I offered to dig a quick-hand pit. The lead guide agreed. The loud client rolled his eyes and said we were wasting powder. He skied 10 meters left onto the steeper line we'd already decided against. My lead guide barked at him to get back. The guy half-turned, gave that smug half-nod again, and kept moving. His friend did a weak little reach with his pole like he could hook him back. Nobody else moved. That's the thing. One person breaks the plan, and suddenly everyone's frozen, waiting to see if the mountain lets it slide. The slope made a sound like someone tearing a bedsheet. A crack shot out from his skis and raced across the face faster than my brain could process. The whole slab detached as one piece. Clean. Surgical. Like the mountain had been waiting for permission. He yelled once and vanished. The slab broke into blocks, and the blocks turned into a white fist. It punched downhill, scooped him, and kept going. For a second, I tracked his helmet. Then it was gone. Just spray and tumbling chunks. Training kicked in hard. I yelled avalanche until my throat hurt. Then I turned downhill to a safe island of trees and watched the debris pour like a river. My lead guide was already pulling out his beacon. His friend tried to chase the slide like it was a dropped wallet. My lead guide grabbed his shoulder strap and yanked him back hard enough to spin him. He didn't soften it. He couldn't. Another person in the runout would have been a second burial, a second hole, a second death you can't undo. When the slide finished, it didn't end with drama. It just slowed and settled. The air went dead. Even the wind shut up, like it didn't want to be involved. When it stopped, the world went silent in that awful way. No wind, no birds, just the soft settling of snow like it was covering a body. We switched to search. Beacons out, eyes scanning for gear. The client's friend was crying without making sound, mouth open like he didn't know how to close it. My lead guide started assigning jobs like we were in a fire drill. One client to stand watch from safe ground. One to keep eyes on the debris for any sign. Me on the primary beacon sweep, because I've been closest and I'd seen the last spot where the loud guy's skis cut across. He forced the others to answer back with copy, so he knew they heard him. One of them kept babbling questions, and my lead guide cut him off, sharp. Move or shut up. It sounded cruel, but it got the noise out of the air. I skied the edge of the debris with the beacon out front, trying to keep my line clean. The signal came fast, faint, then stronger, then the beeps stacked on top of each other until it felt like the device was yelling at me. Numbers dropped. 10, 7, 5. The debris was hard, set up like broken sidewalk. Every step felt like walking on rubble. We got a signal. Strong. Close. I bracketed the lowest number while my lead guide came in low behind me. Calm as a machine. The friend kept hovering at the edge, stepping forward, stepping back, like he couldn't pick a reality. I shoved my arm out to keep him off the debris without even looking at him. I started probing, stabbing down through debris that felt like broken concrete. Probe hit something that wasn't rock. My stomach dropped. I hit it again to be sure. Same dull stop. Not stone, not tree, something with give. My lead guide marked the spot and we went as shovels. Fast, ugly, no finesse. You throw snow like you're trying to outrun time. We dug with shovels and hands, moving snow away like it was poisonous. I found a glove. I found a sleeve. I found a face packed in ice. His goggles were shoved up on his forehead like a joke. He was on his side, chin tucked, mouth clogged. The snow around his head had set like plaster. I cleared his airway with 2 fingers and a scoop of my glove. My lead guide started compressions immediately, counting under his breath like a metronome. I did breaths. The routine took over because if you let your brain think, you stop functioning. The friend tried to grab his shoulder to pull him up, and my lead guide shoved him back with an elbow without breaking rhythm. The friend stumbled and made this animal sound like he'd been kicked. One of the other clients snapped at him to back the fuck up. It wasn't kind. It was the only way to keep the space clear. We worked him until my arms burned and my hands went numb. No cove, no blink, no fight, just dead weight and ice. I kept hoping for something small, anything, to prove we weren't just beating on a corpse. Nothing. My lead guide stopped, checked for signs, then shook his head once. No speech, no comfort, just that one motion that tells you the story is over. Nothing came back. The mountain didn't give a speech. It didn't punish him with drama. It just took him and went back to being pretty. We had to get off the slope before we became the next problem. We covered him as best we could and moved the living people to safe ground. I called patrol on the radio with a voice that sounded wrong in my own ears. Coordinates, time, size of slide, burial duration. My lead guide repeated it cleaner, like he was reading a report. Patrol met us at the boundary later, calm in that tired way people get when this is their whole winter. They asked for details, times, decisions. I told the truth. We warned him. He stepped out anyway. They asked it 3 different ways, like they were trying to find the crack that started it. Did you set consequences? Did you physically stop him? Did you consider turning the group? My lead guide stayed polite, but hard. He said we set the plan, communicated it, and the client left the track. I stood there hearing my own earlier silence, all the times I swallowed words, and it felt like that silence weighed as much as my pack. Back at the lot, normal life kept happening. Music from someone's truck, laughing, a dog running circles. My hand shook while I tried to peel my wet gloves off. The friend sat on the snowbank staring at nothing, like his brain had left and forgotten his body. One of the quiet clients got angry, started ranting about suing, about how this should have been prevented, like blame could reverse time. My lead guide let him burn out, then told him flat that the mountain doesn't care what you paid. The worst part wasn't the death. It was the moment right before the slab released, when he looked over his shoulder and smirked like he'd won. I still guide. I still carry extra shovels. And I still hate that smug half nod, because sometimes it's the last human thing you see before the snow decides you're an object. About a month into the season, I was the mechanic assigned to morning lift checks. Bolts, grips, chairs, safety gates, the boring stuff that keeps people alive. I planned to finish inspection before public load, sign a sheet, and grab coffee before the supervisor started barking. I'd done it enough that my hands worked faster than my head. Bar down, latch click, shove on it, bar up, look at the hangar, move on. The lift terminal is loud in a way that makes you sloppy if you let it. Motors, sheaves, the chain, that constant clack of chairs cycling through like an assembly line. It's easy to start thinking of people as weights and not bodies. I found a chair with a safety bar that didn't drop clean. Stiff hinge. Not unusual. But when I looked closer, the hinge pin had fresh tool marks. Someone had been at it recently, and not with our tools. Not rounded wear, not old rust, not random scraping. Clean little bites, like somebody used a decent set and took their time. The kind of marks you only get when a hand is steady and the person doing it isn't drunk or rushing. I tagged it, pulled it from service, and swapped in a spare. Easy. It should have been a 5-minute annoyance and nothing else. Then I checked the next chair and the next, and my stomach went sour. 3 more had the same marks. Same spot, same angle, spaced out down the line like a pattern. Not wear, tampering. That word feels dramatic until you're staring at metal that's been messed with on purpose. I stopped hearing the terminal noise for a second and just listened to my own breathing because the math hit me. If someone was touching chairs deliberately, they could touch a lot of them before anyone noticed. I told my lead. He shrugged like I was being dramatic. Probably a contractor, he said. He wanted the lift turning on time. He didn't want paperwork. He didn't want me to say the word tamper anywhere near a supervisor's radio. The resort runs on that bullshit reflex. Don't name the thing, and it's not real. I pushed harder, and he got that annoyed look, like I'd chosen the worst possible morning to be a Boy Scout. I didn't let it go. I walked him out to the chair, made him put his face near the pin, made him look. He still tried to wave it off until I opened the housing on one of the bars. Inside, I found a thin smear of clear grease where there shouldn't be any, slick as spit. Not our thick black stuff that gets everywhere. Clear, clean, almost invisible unless you catch it in the light. The latch looked fine until you put pressure on it. Then it slipped. Not a full pop, just that ugly little half step where the teeth lose bite and the bar suddenly feels less like a lock and more like a suggestion. A small failure that becomes a big one when someone panics midair. People don't sit still up there. They lean, they twist, they reach, they fight with boots, they grab the bar and yank. The bar has to hold through stupid. My lead finally stopped shrugging, but even then his first instinct wasn't shut it down. It was, how fast can we fix this without anyone important hearing about it? That pissed me off more than the grease. I said we needed to pull footage from the maintenance camera. He acted like that was overkill. Security acted like it was a favor. Everyone wanted to keep the morning smooth, keep the line moving, keep the guests smiling, because that's what pays. Dead simple truth. The place only respects danger after it costs money. I pulled the footage from the maintenance camera myself. Grainy, but enough. A figure in a hood walked the loading area at night, carrying a small case. He didn't wander. He didn't stop to look around like a kid sneaking beers. He moved like he belonged there. He stopped at chairs like he knew which ones to touch. Open, work, close, step to the next. No random vandelusem. No stupid spray paint. A routine. The part that got me was how calm it looked. Like he was doing prep work before his own shift. We called security. They dragged their feet. They always do until something breaks in front of paying customers. They gave me the usual garbage. Angles, maybe it's maintenance, maybe it's just someone checking things. I told them nobody checks safety bars at midnight with a case and a hood. I told them to watch his hands. He wasn't inspecting. He was applying something. They nodded like they heard me and then did nothing with urgency. My lead went back to obsessing over the public load time like a lawsuit can't ride the lift too. So I kept checking. I pulled more chairs than I was allowed to pull. I wrote more tags than my lead wanted to sign. Every time I thought I was done, I'd find another pin with those bright, fresh bites. Some housings had the same clear slickness. Some looked clean, but the latch felt wrong. Too smooth, too eager to slide. I started testing bars harder than normal, leaning into them the way nervous people do. I could feel how little it would take, a shift, a lean, a kid squirming at the wrong moment. That's what messed with my head. Not so dramatic snap, just a quiet slip. 2 days later, a guest fell off a chair. Not a full plummet, he was lucky. The safety bar popped under his weight when he leaned forward to adjust a boot buckle. He slipped through the gap, caught the side rail, and dangled screaming while the chair kept moving. Patrol stopped the lift and hauled him back up. His shoulder dislocated. He'll probably sue. He'll probably win. When the call came in over the radio, my stomach went cold because I knew exactly what it was before anyone finished the sentence. I didn't feel surprise. I felt rage. That's the worst part. Your brain already has the picture loaded. The resort went into full panic mode only after a lawsuit smell hit the air. Suddenly my tag chair mattered. Suddenly my dramatic tool marks were evidence. Supervisors who'd ignored me were suddenly asking for exact times and chair numbers like they'd been on my side all along. My lead started talking louder, like volume could erase the fact he'd tried to wave it off. Security finally started moving like a real department instead of mall cops in ski jackets. Security finally caught the hooded figure on camera again. This time closer. It was an employee, food service, recently fired. Someone my lead had screamed it in front of a crowd the week before. I remembered it because it was one of those humiliations that hangs in the air even after it's over. My lead did it like a show because that's how he handles being challenged. Make someone smaller in front of witnesses. Then the resort did what it always does. A pink slip and a smug shrug, like firing someone, is the same thing as fixing a problem. They found a little case in his car, tools, grease, printed diagrams of chair models, a notebook with dates. Planned, patient, cold. The notebook wasn't some messy, angry scrawl. It was neat. Chair numbers, notes on latch types, nights he'd been up there, like he was clocking in for sabotage the way the rest of us clock in for work. That's what made me feel sick. Not passion, not impulse. Routine. Everyone acted relieved. Problem solved, monster caught. Managers started smiling again. People started using words like isolated incident, like the mountain itself was embarrassed and promised to behave now. My lead tried to slide into the relief like he'd been right all along. I wanted to smash my wrench into the concrete just to hear something honest. But I wasn't relieved because I kept thinking about the 2-day gap. How many bars he touched that we didn't find? How many fine hinges had a slick smear hiding inside? Waiting for a lean forward, waiting for a kid to wiggle a boot buckle at the wrong time. We found the ones with obvious marks because they were sloppy enough to show. What about the ones where he didn't leave visible bites? What about the chairs that passed a light test but would fail under panic pressure? People assume safety is a switch. Either it's safe or it's broken. Reality is uglier. There's a middle zone where it mostly holds until it doesn't, and that's where bodies get hurt. We replaced parts. We overhauled latches. We wrote new procedures like paperwork can erase physics. They made us sign out grease. They made us lock cabinets. They added checkboxes to forms. None of it touched the real issue. We ignored the warning signs because we wanted the morning to go smooth. We treated the first evidence like an inconvenience instead of a threat because admitting a threat means shutting things down. And shutting things down means money. The guest who dangled off that chair paid the price for that delay, not the managers. I still do morning checks. I still run my fingers over hinge pins and look for fresh marks. I still crack housings open when something feels too slick or too clean. My lead still hates it. Supervisors still try to push time over safety. I still fight them because I can't unsee that footage. I can't unfeel the latch slipping under pressure. And every time a chair sways out of the terminal with laughing people on it, I picture a calm, hooded figure walking the line at night, touching metal like he's petting an animal, setting up failures that won't happen in front of him. That's the part that sticks. The mountain doesn't always kill you directly. Sometimes people bring their grudges up here and hide them in the equipment you trust without thinking. It was my week on snowmaking, which means you live outside and argue with hoses at 3 a.m. I planned to finish a nozzle swap on the upper cat track, log the water pressure numbers, and ride down before the wind turned mean. The shift had already chewed me up. My glove stayed wet no matter how many times I swapped liners. The hose at that gun kept kicking like it had a temper, and every time I cracked a fitting it spat ice grit into my face. I kept telling myself, just do the swap, write the numbers, get off the damn ridge. Simple, mechanical, no room for feelings. The forecast said low visibility. That was polite. The mountain turned into a blank page. Headlamp beam hit fog and bounced back into my eyes. The world ended 3 feet in front of me. It wasn't even dramatic snow, just that thick suspended white that makes everything flat and stupid. Trees didn't look like trees. They looked like darker smudges that could be 10 feet away or 100. You lose depth. You lose edges. You lose your sense of down. Your body still moves, but your brain starts guessing, and guessing on a mountain is how people vanish. I had a GPS unit clipped to my chest, but batteries hate cold. It kept dimming like it wanted to die. My radio crackled with other crew complaining about valves. Normal stuff. Comforting almost. Then the wind shifted and the whiteout thickened so hard I couldn't see my own boots. I tried to hug what I thought was the cat track. I felt with my feet for hard pack, for that groomed stiffness you get when a machine's been over it. The ground felt level, packed. I kept my steps short, almost shuffling, because long strides are how you step into air without realizing it. A sound started, low, rhythmic, like boots behind me. Not close, not far, matching my pace. At first I wanted to laugh at myself. You get tired up there and your head makes weird patterns. The wind makes noises. Your own crunch bounces around. Fine, whatever, but the sound had weight. It landed in the snow the way a person lands. Hail, two, hail, two. Same tempo as me, like it was copying my body. I stopped. The sound stopped. No extra slide. No little adjustment. It just ended like someone hit mute. That's what hooked fear into me. A human stops messy. Snow grabs you. You shift. You breathe. This was clean. I walked again. It walked again. I told myself it was my own crunch echoing weird in fog. I told myself to stop being a fucking child. I had work to do. I had towers to check. I had a job that didn't care about my imagination. I checked my GPS screen, blinked, then went black. Of course. I thumbed the power button like I could bully it back to life. Nothing. Just dead plastic hanging off my chest. I felt suddenly small, like all my gear was just toys the cold was allowed to kill whenever it wanted. My radio popped. A voice came through. Same channel, same tone as my supervisor, saying, "You're offline." Cut left. It sounded so normal that my body relaxed for half a second. That's what scares me now when I think about it. Confidence is a sedative. When you can't see, you want someone to be sure. You want a direction that isn't your own shaky guess. I didn't question it. That's the dangerous part. When visibility is zero, you obey anything that sounds confident. I cut left. The snow under my boots changed instantly from hard pack to soft drift. My stomach tightened. Cat tracks don't drift like that. It wasn't a subtle change either. One step was firm, the next step sank. The snow swallowed my boot up to the ankle and held it there. I yanked it out and my balance wobbled. Cold shot up my shin. My brain screamed, "Wrong surface, wrong surface, wrong surface." The boots behind me kept pace. That sound didn't get louder. It didn't rush. It just stayed with me like a shadow, like it had all the time in the world and didn't need to hurry because the mountain was already doing the work. I swung my headlamp around. The beam caught nothing but moving white. Still, the feeling of someone right there pressed hard into my back like a hand. Not some gentle, spooky presence. Pressure, a shove that hadn't happened yet, but felt loaded, waiting. I tried the radio. Repeat. Static. No answer. I keyed it again and again, harder, like I could force the air to cooperate. Nothing but hiss. And the crew chatter that had been there a minute ago, gone. Like the whole mountain had decided I didn't get that comfort anymore. I stopped again, breathing hard, try to listen for anything that proved this was just my own noise. The crunch stopped with me. Perfect. I couldn't see behind me, but I could feel the space back there crowded, like someone was standing so close my body should have picked up heat. All I felt was cold. I started edging back toward where the packed track should be. My boots dragged through drift. The snow resisted like wet sand. My headlamp made the fog look thicker, like it was coming at me. I told myself, get back to hardpack, find a marker pole, get your bearings, don't do anything brave. I took another step left and felt air under my toe. Not a little drop, a full absence. I froze, balancing on the edge of something I couldn't see. That moment wasn't cinematic. It was just pure terror and physics. My toe didn't touch snow. It touched nothing. My weight started to tip forward because my body assumes ground exists. My stomach lurched like I'd missed a stair. My hands flew out, and I dropped hard to my knees before momentum could finish the job. I crawled backward until my boots hit firm ground again. My heart hammered like it wanted out. I stayed low, palms flat on packed snow, and I didn't move for a second because I needed to feel the ground under me like proof. The boot step sound stayed silent. That scared me more than hearing it. Like it was waiting, like it knew I'd seen the edge now, and it was switching tactics. I fumbled for a flare in my pocket. Standard crew stuff, mostly for breakdowns or if a sled dies and you need someone to spot you. My fingers were numb and stupid. The cap fought me. I swore out loud, because anger was the only thing that kept panic from swallowing me. I sparked it. Red light punched a hole in the fog, and for 1 second, I saw what I'd almost done. I'd been one step from walking off the side of a cut where they'd carved the track. A steep drop into rocks and frozen brush. Not fall and laugh steep. This appears steep. The edge was ugly. Wind had undercut it. There were little shelves that looked solid, but weren't. Down below, dark rock teeth stuck out through snow, and frozen brush waited like barbed wire. It wasn't the kind of fall you crawl away from. It was the kind that turns you into a problem for patrol in the morning. The flare hissed and smoked. In that red bubble of light, the bootstep sound stopped for good. It didn't fade away. It didn't walk off. It just ceased like whatever had been pacing me hated the flare, hated being inside that red truth. The air felt emptier behind me, but I still didn't stand because trusting empty in a whiteout felt like trusting a liar. I crawled along the packed edge until I found a marker pole, then another, moving like an insect. I kept the flare low so it lit the ground, not the fog. I used my free hand to feel for the hard line of the track. My knees scraped. I soaked through my pants. I didn't care. I just kept moving pole to pole like it was a rope line in a fire. When the flare burned down, I already had the next pole in my hand. That's the only reason I didn't lose it again. I didn't let go once. I moved by touch and muscle memory. I counted steps in my head because numbers feel safer than thoughts. I didn't stand up again until I hit a snow gun tower I recognized. The tower's metal was cold enough to sting through my glove, but I hugged it anyway, like it was a person. I leaned my forehead into the steel and breathed until my lungs stopped trying to sprint. My radio suddenly crackled again, like nothing had happened. Other guys complaining. A laugh. Someone asking for pressures. Normal life returning, casual and cruel. I got down to the shack with my leg, shaking so bad I kept misstepping on the packed road. I try to act fine because snowmaking has this stupid culture where you don't admit you got scared. You just say you got turned around and keep moving. But my hands wouldn't stop trembling when I tried to write my numbers. And I kept seeing that empty air under my toe. Later, my supervisor swore nobody told me to cut left. He was on a different run entirely. He checked the radio logs. No transmission at that time. I argued with him harder than I should have. I told him I heard his voice, his exact tone, that clipped calm like he was annoyed I needed help. He got pissed, then got quiet when he saw I wasn't trying to be funny. We went through channels. We asked who else was out there. Nobody owned it. The logs stayed blank, a dead space where that instruction should have been. So what the hell did I hear? I still work snowmaking. But when the whiteout goes full blank and the radio pops with a clean, calm instruction, I don't obey immediately anymore. I force a second confirmation, because once you realize the mountain can imitate authority, and your brain will happily accept it, You start wondering how many helpful voices have walked people right off the edge. Last season, I worked nights cleaning the Mid-Mountain Lodge. Mop floors, haul trash, lock doors, repeat. I planned to finish early, ride the service sled down with maintenance, and be home before my roommate noticed I'd stolen his last ramen. The lodge was dead in that fake way buildings get when the public's gone, but the machines keep breathing. Fridges droned. Somewhere out on the line, a lift tower clanked once, slow and metallic, like somebody kicked it. It shouldn't have been moving at all. I stood there with my mop halfway up, listening, waiting for a second clank that never came. I bagged the last trash, shoved the mop bucket into the closet, and went out to the deck to drag the bins to the pad. Cold slapped the sweat on my neck. Snow came down like dry sand. The floodlights made a little yellow bubble around the lodge, and everything past that was pure black. Down on the lower traverse, I saw a single headlamp bobbing, way past where anyone should be after close. At first I assumed it was patrol doing sweep. Then the light wobbled like the person wearing it was stumbling, and I heard a noise that didn't belong anywhere on a mountain after dark. A ragged, animal-sounding scream, cut off mid-note, like someone bit their own tongue to stop it. I ran the length of the deck and yelled. No answer. The headlamp dipped behind a berm and vanished. For a second, I just stood there with my hands on the railing, heart hammering, trying to decide if I was about to do something stupid. My phone was inside, charging upstairs. I swore and sprinted back in, tore open the lost and found drawer, and grabbed the old handheld radio they kept for employees. Scratched to hell, antenna bent, but it still had juice. I keyed up and called base. Static. I moved 3 steps, tried again. Static. I climbed onto a chair like that was going to change the air. Static. Then a voice punched through, annoyed and breathy. Maintenance, not patrol. He asked who was outside. I said who I was, said I saw a headlamp, said I heard a scream. He snapped back that I needed to stay in the lodge and let patrol handle it. He started talking about liability like this was some fucking spreadsheet. I snapped right back. I told him someone was out there right now, and he could either call dispatch or listen to me call 911 on a dead phone. He swore, the radio crackled, and he finally said he'd raise patrol. I stepped off the deck and started down, boots sliding on that late-night refreeze that turns the run into glass. The wind shoved at my back and made it easy to go down and hard to stop. I kept the radio up by my mouth like it was a weapon. The headlamp reappeared in flashes, jittering, then disappearing again. Halfway down, I slipped and went to a knee hard enough to bruise through my pants. I got back up and forced myself to slow down, heel first, testing each step. I yelled again. Still nothing. Then I heard that same throat-rip noise, shorter this time, like pain getting swallowed. I found him at the edge of a drainage dip, half hidden by a snowbank. A kid, 16 maybe, twisted on his side with one ski, still clipped on. His other ski was gone. His pole was snapped. His helmet strap hung loose. One glove was gone. His bare hand was pale and stiff, fingers curled like they were trying to hold heat that wasn't there. He tried to talk, and his teeth clacked so hard I heard it over the wind. He kept repeating one phrase like a broken recording, I can't feel it. His leg was bent in a way legs shouldn't bend. No blood spraying, no movie shit, just a joint that had quit being a joint. His boot was still on, but the angle above it was wrong. He'd crawled a few feet on his elbows, leaving a trench, then stopped like his body cashed out. I knelt close and saw his eyelashes crusted with snow. His lips looked gray. When he breathed, it came in shallow puffs like he was sipping air. I asked him where his friends were, and he stared at me like he couldn't remember what friends meant. His eyes kept drifting past my shoulder toward the trees, and I kept turning my head like a paranoid idiot. Nothing there. I got the radio closer, antenna up, and finally caught patrol dispatch in the static. I yelled our location until my throat burned. Run name, nearest tower, the dip by the berm. Dispatch kept cutting in and out, asking me to repeat, and I had to stand up and wave the radio over my head just to keep the signal. I shouted it again. I shouted my name. I shouted that he was a kid and his leg was fucked and his hand was bare. Dispatch told me help was coming and to keep him awake. Then the line dissolved into hiss. The kid shivered hard at first, whole body shakes that made his teeth sound like they were going to break. Then the shaking slowed. That scared me more than the scream. He stared past me at the trees like he was watching something I couldn't see, and the way his eyes went flat made my stomach drop. I yanked off my jacket and stuffed it over his chest. I took my beanie and jammed it onto his head. I wrapped his bare hand in the only thing I had, one of my cleaning rags, and he tried to push it away like he was embarrassed. His arm just gave up halfway and fell. I didn't do hero shit. I didn't touch his leg. I didn't try to set anything. I didn't drag him, even though my brain kept screaming to get him closer to the lights. I stayed put and kept him talking with ugly, forceful questions because silence felt like death creeping closer. Name, age, what run, where'd you cut? Can you hear me? Don't close your eyes. Answer me. He gave me a first name. He said he was following 2 friends and took the shortcut, and then his words fell apart. He asked me if he was going to get in trouble. I told him I didn't give a fuck about trouble. I cared about him staying awake. My voice came out meaner than I meant, but it kept him blinking. I watched his bare fingers like they were a timer counting down. Headlights finally showed through the snow. Patrol, 2 of them, hauling a toboggan that hissed on the hardpack. Relief hit so fast my knees went weak. They didn't waste time on me. One of them barked at me to move, and I almost barked back, but the look on his face shut me up. They moved like it was muscle memory. One checked his airway. One kept the leg steady. One cut away the pant leg with a hook knife. They worked fast and quiet, like talking would waste time. They unclipped the ski with a quick twist, the kind of move that would have been casual if it wasn't attached to a kid whose leg was folding wrong. When they pulled his boot, one patroller looked at the toes and muttered fuck like it slipped out by accident. They strapped the kid down, wrapped him in insulation, and started dragging him up toward the cat track. One of them told me to get back to the lodge before I froze too. I trudged back up alone, radio dead in my glove, trying not to picture him going still on that sled. Back inside, the warmth felt wrong, like the building was pretending nothing happened. My fingers burned as they thawed. Maintenance came over the radio again, wanting a report, wanting times, wanting to know why I left the building. He said it like I'd wandered off to smoke. I told him what happened, and he went quiet, and that quiet felt like a punch. 10 minutes later, my supervisor called and asked if I'd left the lodge without permission. Like that was the emergency. I sat on the tile by the employee door with my boots still on, shaking like I'd run a marathon. The mop closet smelled like bleach and wet rubber, and it made me want to puke. I kept replaying the moment his shivering slowed, like I'd missed a sign, like I should have done something smarter than wrap a rag around his hand. Patrol called back once they got him onto the cat, and all they said was he had a pulse and they were heading for the clinic. That was it. No comfort, just status. The next afternoon, when I came in for my shift, the lodge staff were talking about it like gossip. 2 teenagers had been waiting at the base area, laughing, boards propped up, telling anyone who'd listen they lost their buddy. They weren't monsters, just careless and tired and sure the mountain would babysit them. I wanted to scream at them, and I didn't because I'm not patrol and I'm not their dad, and it wouldn't change the night. I just kept thinking how close he came to disappearing into that dip. Later, I learned the kid had chased a shortcut after his friends, missed the merge, and clipped ice at speed. His friends made it down and assumed he'd gone inside. Nobody checked. Patrol found his missing glove the next morning, half buried near where he'd cartwheeled, stiff as a board. He lived. He also lost parts of 2 toes to frostbite because his glove came off in the fall and the cold had time to work. That's the part one can't shake. You don't need a monster on a mountain. You just need 5 minutes of silence and a stupid missing glove.